Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's podcast episode with blockchain consultants. And today, this is the first episode where I have a project on my podcast where we'll be having a conversational session. And I'm glad to introduce to you Dave Bergsma and Golden Eye from XTRABYTES. And we'll be having this conversation around their new project on the blockchain. And I really get excited about new projects in the space and to see how we can explore more use cases for the blockchain so we can go mainstream. Dave and Golden, welcome to today's episode. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure having you as well. And let's go right to the first question. I would like you to introduce yourselves and tell me how you ended up in the blockchain technology industry.
Well, my name is Dave Bergsma. I'm a co-founder of XTRABYTES, and I got into the industry about 5 years ago. By chance, I come from a very long career of multi-level marketing, and at that time, we entered into the area of network marketing and blockchain starting to crisscross. And I was happy to find a project that helped me learn a lot about the industry and had some great success. And basically, long story short, that success eventually led to me making an investment into a project that was doing some sort of an ICO on an exchange that is no longer in existence called CCX. And this ICO was really just, you spoke earlier when we were just talking about the ICO situations back about 3 years ago. And this is exactly when this happened. In fact, it was January of 2017. And I was sitting in the troll box, and this is not an unknown story. We've got lots of history we've posted about how we got started in the project. And so January 2017, lots of ICOs happening, lots of excitement. People are starting to go crazy trying to make money, and people were making money, as you probably know, hand over fist very quickly at the time. And it was just one of those things. I saw this project, people were talking about it in the troll box, and just a big frenzy was happening. It was called BitMox. And I decided to throw some of my Bitcoin in there, and I ended up buying some of these coins. And basically, as I say, the history is very well known. It's well written on our original Bitcoin Talk platform that we had. And basically, the situation, what had happened is this money that I had thrown into the hat, so to speak, I very quickly realized that it was a mistake. In fact, normally I would have taken the time maybe to do a little bit of investigation, but just as I said, it was a little bit of a frenzy. So I threw my money in, and at that point, I decided to go take a look and see what this project was all about. And I clicked the link, and it went to this web page. I'll never forget. I can still see this vision in my head. There was a picture of a guy's face, and the jaw was tore open and like blood coming out of it or something. And I'm like, oh man, I just lost my money.
I know.
And basically, this is what was going to happen. And after about a month's time, a lot of waiting, a lot of hoping, a lot of wondering, I got to the point of saying, you know what, I need to figure out if I can get my money back somehow. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go and try and find somebody. Maybe I can find the developer. At the time, I didn't understand that somebody had actually scammed a whole bunch of people. And it's really unfortunate because we have gone through a phase with our project after 3 years now, more than 3 years, where a lot of people have labeled us a scam. And that's so far from the truth, it's not even funny. In fact, I believe in the end, when it's all said and done, we're going to be looked at as heroes, because we actually took the situation that I had just spoke about, what we fell into. And in my search for trying to find a developer, I came across a developer, but he was in the same position as me. And this is actually my partner and co-founder of XTRABYTES, Zoltan Sabo. And so he was looking for somebody to help with marketing because he doesn't know English well. He's Hungarian. And as a matter of fact, Zoltan is also, well, I guess probably about 95% deaf, just due to something that happened through his life. So he doesn't hear. And obviously not communicating well, but he had a career behind him at the time of over 25 years of programming. And I think at the time it was 7 or 9 years of blockchain experience. And so basically he was saying on Bitcoin Talk, my name is Zoltan, and just a little bit of what I just talked about. I'm looking for someone to help me. Maybe we can help this project survive and get our money back. And so myself, with the background of marketing for about 25 years, I wrote him, and that's where it all started with us. So basically, it's for me, it started out with getting into this as BitMox, and then long story short, April 7th of 2017 was the official launch of XTRABYTES. Zoltan had forked the chain, and we took over at that point because the original chain stopped at 300 blocks, and he repaired some of the code. There was some things wrong with it, some things that were hidden inside, that there was going to be unlimited coins, and so all that stuff got changed, and we started moving forward. And with the grassroots movement during that period of time, from well, really from, let's say, February, when Zoltan and I first started working together, we started gathering all the other people who had fallen into that same boat as us. And so we had an original organic group, let's just say it like that, who was like, okay, if these guys are going to try and help, then we'll help too. And so as a group, we started talking about it, and we started working towards things, and the name came up through some voting in inside the team that we were creating, and here we are 3 years later, and a lot of things have happened. So that's my entry. So I'll pass it over now to Golden.
Yeah, well, my entry story into blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies is a bit different than Dave's. I think I first came into contact through my regular job in 2012, I think. I came in contact with Bitcoin, and I said, well, that seems interesting. Let's try that mining they are all talking about. So I took an old computer, because at the time it was still possible to mine from a regular computer. And I did a little bit of mining on an old computer from my employer. And I think 6 months into it, the computer had to be declassified, and I had to give it back. And it was such a hassle back in the day to transfer coins, and there wasn't any real user-friendly wallets available to make transfers and transactions. And I said, well, it's not worth that much. A couple of dollars at the time, I think $40 worth of Bitcoin at the time. I said, well, I'll just erase everything and give it back. And it just stopped there, because I said, well, it's too complicated. This will never become popular. It's too, it's only for people that really have the time to dig into this. And I think I then came across it again, 2016, again, through my work. And I said, whoa, well, apparently that became more popular than I initially thought, because the price in the meantime had risen a lot. There was a lot more available in terms of wallets and exchanges and possibilities to make transactions. But even then, I wasn't really quite comfortable stepping in again until a year later, when my brother-in-law said, I have a colleague, and he says he knows an excellent opportunity. He says this is going to be the next Ethereum. And I said, oh, well, what do you have? And he said, well, it's XTRABYTES. And he started explaining what was available at the time in terms of information of what they were trying to achieve. And I said, well, yeah, that could be something. That can have some real world use to it. So, because that was always something that I was looking for into, if I was looking at cryptocurrency projects, blockchain projects, does it actually do anything? Or is it just someone trying to create a currency and make it popular through hype without any functionality to it? Because I didn't think that, I still don't think that there's a real future in there, and projects that only go for, well, let's create another coin for payment, and try to make it as popular as possible. I still don't think that is the way to go if you really want to have a long-term project with long-term success. But I looked into XTRABYTES and I said, yeah, why not? So I threw a couple of €100 in it at the time. I made a deal with my wife because she was very adamant about it. She said, yeah, you can invest for 1 year and then you have to take it out again. So I think it was October 2017 when I bought a couple of €100 of XTRABYTES. And it went all the way up very quickly in the end of 2017, beginning 2018. And of course, foolish like everyone else, thinking it would keep going up, forgot to cash out at the time and wrote it down like everybody else. But in January, I got, they were looking for additional designers, and I had a background in arts. So I volunteered to join the team as a designer. I started off as a junior designer. I worked my way up, and then gradually transferred from the design team to the development team because they were looking for people to help develop Excite, our client. I refuse to call it a wallet because it's so much more. It's our client. And they were looking for someone to help develop especially the front end part, the user interface. And I had some experience in coding. So I brushed up my coding skills and joined the development team. And one thing led to another. And I think later 2000, was it 18? I don't know, it was 1 year, 2019, eventually I met Dave and Zoltan in person. We finally decided to meet up because we wanted to have a meeting regarding the patents at the time. And I was working closely, after that, I worked closely with Zoltan to get as much information as possible written down in preparation of the patent applications, and been focusing on developing several things for the project since, with a lot of help of the other team members, a lot of skillful people that we have on our team. So I think that's my journey from knowing nothing about cryptocurrency and blockchain to joining the team and being where I am right now.
Quite interesting accounts, and I can imagine that the $40 you'd sort of erased would have probably been worth a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars by now, because I remember back in early 2017, I did an analysis article of anybody who had invested about $100 into Bitcoin as of 2012 or 2011, and when you extrapolate, it was supposed to be worth millions of dollars. So imagine what your $40 right?
No, I don't like to think about that. So
I know, right? Like, it can be painful, right? So
well, that's also $40 worth of Bitcoin that's never going to enter the network again because it's lost forever.
Exactly, and it also helps with the helping drive down the inflation value of Bitcoin anyway. So
it's also because of people like me who said, forget about it, that the supply is what it is. Exactly. So
you took one for the team, for the Bitcoin team. It's all good.
I did my part.
I know. And it's interesting that Dave, you had to fall into prey of some scam ICOs. I remember whilst we were actually at the peak of our activities at ICO, at least, one of the major problems we had was projects that were to list, because by virtue of being a credible platform, once we got listed on our platform, there was a possibility of getting an investor, right? So we had to do a lot of due diligence to ensure that projects were good before we listed them. And even then, because we were short-staffed, it took a lot of work. That's why I'm particularly excited about my current role at Decor, where most of our, practically all we do is to go into projects for about 2 to 3 weeks, or sometimes fast forward a week, and try to dissect to see how credible they are. Because I mean, some of these things actually do affect the perception of the space and how fast we go mainstream, and the kind of tags that people have about crypto and blockchain in general. Anyway, onto my second question. I would like to know what the motivation was in starting the XTRABYTES project.
Well, the original motivation was to help everybody get their money back, which we did.
Oh, you did?
And well, absolutely. Everybody who bought Bitmox
from the scam ICO.
Well, yes, because everybody who bought Bitmox coins, they were when we forked the chain, everybody got their coins in XTRABYTES instead, so XBY coin. And then, you know, some people may have walked away. We don't know what the actual reality is of everybody, but every single coin that was bought in the ICO was put on the XTRABYTES chain, and then it grew from there up to the point that it was at 1 Satoshi when I had bought, and then we got up to I believe it was 5,000 Satoshis. So almost, anybody in the beginning who was still paying attention, not only did they get their money back, but they could have become very rich. So it was an exciting time. But as Golden said, of course, the bull run ended, and then you know, the prices went down across the board for everybody, and you know, that's just the way it was, and you know, now we're starting to see things come back around again. So it's and not just you know, for us, we're still a little slow getting off the ground here because our technology is still very much in development, but we do see a lot of activity in the markets now. Where a lot of people think that the new bull run is coming. So it's very likely that's how it looks, but you know, we'll see. But as far as sorry, again, what was your question? I've forgotten.
The motivation for starting XTRABYTES.
Okay, right. So that was the first motivation, but beyond that, what we actually have is when I met Zoltan, and at first, of course, we didn't meet in person. I believe it was June of 2017 when we met face to face. I flew over to Hungary and we met. But in the meantime, you know, talking over Skype at the time, we were back and forth every day, nonstop. You know, at the time I was working 12 to 18 hours a day. He was as well. And so I'm learning a lot about him and learning about his skills. And so the original motivation was to create, and in fact, the original motivation was to create a simple project. We were really just going to put a simple project together. You know, we helped get the problem with the ICO straightened out, and then we were going to just do a storage coin, something like I forget the coins that were out there at the time, Saya coin, I think, and then another one, but basically just storage coins. And so that's how it was going to start. And so what had happened is Zoltan and I were always talking back and forth, and I knew based on what he was telling me that there was a lot of potential for what he had in his mind for development and what he was working on over the last few years as he dissected the blockchain space and the programming, the technology that was there, and was coming up with various ideas to improve things. And so we were just going to run it like that and do a storage coin, and then based on the success of that, we were going to start another project later, which would have been XTRABYTES. But along the way, we started looking at the team and the community that was developing. And it was basically decided that, hey, you know, why would we want to do that? Why don't we just give the whole technology to this group of people that have helped us get to where we are today? Because success was coming very well at that time. And so that's when we made the decision that, okay, let's turn this project into this vision that you have for a new technology. As Golden had said with his brother-in-law, the next Ethereum. Wouldn't like to compare ourselves to Ethereum, but you know, that's how a lot of people have to look at things because it's what they understand in the industry. And so we are indeed putting together a platform with new technologies, a new way of doing things. It's absolutely unique, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about that. Golden is the expert on that, so I'll leave all that stuff to him. But that's the motivation, is to create a project that you know, we're bringing new technology to the table is basically what it is.
All right, awesome. So Golden, what makes XTRABYTES different from the rest of the project, particularly? What makes it different from Ethereum?
Well, what makes it different from most of the projects out there is that XTRABYTES is not primarily focused on economics. Most of the coins out there, they come up with some kind of economic scheme to earn extra coins, mining or other things to get people more coins without actually having a use case for the coins. And Ethereum was, when it came out, was special because for the first time there was a project out there that didn't just focus on peer-to-peer transactions and earning more coins. They came up with smart contracts, so tying conditions to transactions, which made it interesting because you could add functionality to a coin, and that was, for me, a very interesting concept. What XTRABYTES is doing is, instead of just building everything around the coin and building everything around coin transactions, which almost every coin is doing. So you take any project out there, and if you boil it down, it is, we have this coin, and this coin will allow you to pay for this service. And this is the service that we are offering. This is very simplified explanation of what most coins are. XTRABYTES is building a network, and the network will offer a range.
I think let's go.
Sorry here. Yeah. So XTRABYTES is will offer a range of different services. So imagine any data service that exists on the internet today and transport that to a decentralized network, meaning that you have the same functionality that you can find on the internet, but the sources that are providing you with the data services, because they are decentralized, they are much more robust than a traditional network. That meaning that there will always be somebody in the backend ready to answer your request, and that can be a coin transaction, that can be storing some data, that can be exchanging data, that can be uploading, streaming, anything that you can think of that happens on the internet in terms of data transaction is what we plan to offer with the XTRABYTES network, but through a decentralized network where it's much more secure, much more reliable, and also much more scalable. We all know issues that websites or other services or API endpoints can have is when there's too much traffic, it slows down and the service becomes unavailable, the website becomes unavailable and things like that. By decentralizing the data resources that are behind the website and the API endpoints, and decentralizing the access to these data resources, we are preventing servers and websites and going down and the data not longer being available. So that means if you have a company and you rely on the data source, and that data source goes down, your company can't work anymore. XTRABYTES will solve this by decentralizing the data source, decentralizing the access to the data source, and your company will always have access to the data source it needs to operate. So even if 50% of the network goes down, it would still have access to the data source. Even if more 75% of the network goes down, it would still have access to its data source. So for companies that are not interested in cryptocurrencies or blockchain per se, I think this is an added value for the way they do business, because they now have data sources that they can always rely on, and that means that they will always be operational, and downtime will be reduced to practically zero for a lot of things.
What's the current transaction per second rate for your blockchain?
Can you repeat that question, please?
CPS, what's the current transactions per second? on XTRABYTES?
The current transactions on XTRABYTES.
Okay.
Well, you have to take a couple of things in consideration. One, we are talking about cryptocurrency transactions, and that is primarily slowed down by the consensus algorithm. If for other projects, we are running a PoSign Lite, so that is the light version of our consensus algorithm. In our test net from 2 years ago, the light version of our PoSign consensus mechanism was able to get up to 500 transactions per second. That's 100 times faster than Bitcoin and 25 times faster than Ethereum. I know there are projects out there that do much, much more. I don't want to focus on that because when we have full PoSign running and we have a full static network and we transition to the new chain that we are preparing, that will completely change because the way transactions are being handled will be completely different than what we see now with current blockchain technology. So what are we projecting? Whatever the machine can handle, that's always, or whatever the network can handle. And the network being a collection of all the machines involved in the network. So that will be the limit. There will be no limits imposed by the protocol. The limits will always come from the hardware involved in the network. And also, we will have much more than just currency transactions. We will also have other forms of data transactions that are not currency related. If I'm sending a file to you, that's a data transaction. If I'm streaming something, that's a data transaction. If I have a request to an API endpoint, that's a data transaction. So you will not only have those cryptocurrency transactions, you will also have all these other transactions that's all being handled by the network. So how fast will the network be? It will all depend on the devices that participate and the number of devices that participate in the network.
So it's intended that your cryptocurrency transactions and data and file transactions would run on the same blockchain, on the same protocol, on the same network.
Well, the same blockchain, no. The same network, yes. If you have a currency, a cryptocurrency for a transaction, that will have its own blockchain.
Okay.
Other parts, other data transactions might also use a blockchain-like structure to exchange the data, but it's not limited to blockchain.
Okay.
Everything that is, it's just, if I have a decentralized database and you are a client and you want to store something, you don't want to store something on a blockchain. You want to store something in a decentralized database, and you want to make sure that whatever you store in that decentralized database, that you can always trust that nobody is going to alter this. And this can be linked to our PoSign algorithm that can protect the data that is kept in a decentralized database. It doesn't have to be blockchain. It can be blockchain. It can also be something else. And every application, every feature that you have can have its own data structure, be it a blockchain, decentralized database, even a private database that is spread out over multiple locations. It's all possible.
That's quite interesting. And I mean, there are lots of wonderful projects in the space. The challenge has always been the wider use case. That's always been the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. I've worked with a couple of blockchain projects that's over the years that are still trying to find wider use cases. And hopefully, I'm sure we'll be able to, cross those boundaries as we go. For XTRABYTES, is this a crowd-funded project? Did you run an ICO? Is there a form of institutional investment in the project? I would like to know that history.
I think maybe that's something for Dave best exactly. To answer.
Yeah, It's actually a very unique story that we have, and I think it's probably going to be something that will go down in history that really puts us in a category of our own. With the way things started out, as I explained earlier, the XTRABYTES, the company itself, didn't get any benefit from the original ICO BitMox. That was all taken by whoever it was that did that. Okay. And so we have basically funded the project ourselves, between the founders and the community and some of the team. Every time we've needed to pay for something, we've got the money on our own and taken it from our own pockets, and it's a self-funded project basically.
Awesome, I see. So there was no specific official ICO or anything, but you basically got it off the ground yourself, because it's quite awesome to see that I see that the current market capitalization for your coin is about a little over $4 million on CoinMarketCap. And being in the ICO space for some time, at least I wouldn't say I have the best retentive memory, but since 2017, I believe I know off the top of my head almost all the ICOs, and I don't remember seeing XTRABYTES. So I was wondering how.
Because it wasn't really an official ICO, it was done on an exchange. So
back
this is basically where the scam happened, I think. Just somebody put the coin on the exchange and said, I'm doing an ICO, and because of the climate at the time with investors, it just blew up.
Okay, so, makes sense. So what's the roadmap of the project looking like? What are we looking at in the short to medium term for XTRABYTES?
Well, we've got a lot of things that are, let's say, a lot of irons on the fire. There's a lot of meals cooking on the stove right now. It's a big challenge, because one of the things that does limit us right now is that we're looking for developers who've got blockchain knowledge and advanced blockchain knowledge, people who can actually help Zoltan. He is obviously the inventor, and he's the one with the highest level of knowledge and ability with the project. And a lot of the stuff that has to happen, he has to do it on his own. So it would be great once we get to a certain point and we can find some other developers that are at least close to his levels that can take some of the weight off his shoulders. But so he's currently working on tying together the let's call it the foundation of the static network. We got our original static nodes, which are basically, you're talking about nodes, master nodes. We call them static nodes. Static is an acronym for services, transactions, and trusted and controlled nodes. And so they're very different than what you see out there with regular nodes. And it's part of the network, as Golden was saying earlier. And so that's, at this point, he's focusing on identifying or connecting all the static nodes we have registered right now to the static database. And essentially what that means is that with the Excite client, which Golden mentioned earlier, those clients will all be able to see and communicate with the static nodes. It's getting close. I can't put any dates on it, but that's what he's working on now. There's a lot of other stuff happening, which Golden, if you want to go ahead and just talk about whatever else you want to say as far as development goes.
Yeah, well, like Dave said, we have Zoltan working on some of the key components for the static network. So once that is done, we plan to roll out a first version, probably first a test version of the static network. That is nodes being operated by people other than team members, people that locked some coins in wallets as the prescribed amount for the different levels of nodes. And the goal will then be, once that static node is up and running, I would like to see that by the first test version of the static network. I would like to see that up and running by the end of the year. I think that is something that should be doable with the resources and the people that we have at this point. And then it will be transferring the functions that we already have for our Excite clients, and transferring them to the static network, where we have 3 levels of nodes that each have a different functionality, and we will have to rewrite those functionalities that we currently have in the Excite client and that are being provided by our Genesis network. We have to transfer those to the static network with the 3 different levels. Maybe to get a little bit of idea on what people can expect from the static network is clients will connect with the network, and they will connect with the lowest level of the network. That means level 3 network. And then there will be different steps of filtering, authentication, execution before a request sent by the Excite clients are returned to the Excite clients. This is to eliminate any bad actors trying to abuse the network. And the network is set up in such a way that the clients interacting with the network only have a limited view of the network, and it's impossible for them to launch an attack against the network because they have no idea where the large part of the network is, because they can only see a small part or they can only access a small part of the network as a client. So that will be after we set up the static network, the test version of it. That will be our first goal, is to create the first features, first functions. And then it's basically a question of building services. So the XTRABYTES network will be a provider of decentralized services, and services can be anything from coin transactions to other data transactions, storing, streaming, and everything that you can expect from what you can do with data. And those services will have a price. So if you want to interact with the network, you want to use one of the decentralized services, you will need to pay for those services. And that is how the economics is built around XTRABYTES. So it's basically a marketplace for decentralized services, where people that want to use those services, they just pay for those services using our coins. And when they can provide proof that they have paid for those services, they get access to those services and they can use those services like they see fit. The goal is to have outside developers developing applications that interact with the network, that use the services offered by the network. That is completely separate from what XTRABYTES is doing. That is something that we have no control over. People who want to build applications that use decentralized services, they are more than welcome to connect to our network to do so, providing that they pay for the services, and the service fees that have to be paid will be distributed amongst the people running the static nodes. On the other hand, we will be, as XTRABYTES, developing our own decentralized services to improve and expand what we can offer on our network. But we will also open this up to external developers. So if an external developer has an interesting idea for a decentralized service, he can also connect with the network and basically offer his service, and then it's up to the static nodes to decide if they think this is something worthwhile offering. And then at some point we will be at a stage where we, as the company XTRABYTES, we will have our own applications, we will have our own clients, we will have our own decentralized services that we have developed and that we maintain and or keep developing. But we will also have the component of the external developers that develop their applications, and we will have the component of the external developers that create decentralized services, and you will have the static network, and each static owner will basically choose what service they will offer and which application they want to offer that service to, because with legalities, different legalities in different countries, the static owner has to be able to make his own decision on what type of services and he wants to offer and which kind of applications he wants to offer these services to. But that is long term.
I remember when we were talking earlier, Gordon, you mentioned the fact that some other projects in the space only concentrate on what's the next payment cryptocurrency to make transactions, and how XTRABYTES wants to be different from all of those cliche projects on the blockchain that just offer you just another Bitcoin or another Ethereum for payment transactions. And I would like to know, what are the use cases for XTRABYTES outside of blockchain?
The use cases for XTRABYTES outside of blockchain is our network will be able to provide you with a service to protect the integrity of your data, PoSign. That's one of our first decentralized services that we will offer. So let's say you have some data, you want to store that data somewhere, and you want to make sure that nobody will alter this data. If you revisit that data on a later date, you want to have assurances that that data hasn't been altered. XTRABYTES can, the PoSign is one of the first services of XTRABYTES that we will offer that will allow you to protect the integrity of your data. Meaning that if you store data anywhere, it can be on a blockchain, it can be in a private database, it can be even on your own device or on somebody else's device. If you revisit that data after a year, 2 years, 3 years, thanks to the PoSign service, you will be able to verify the integrity of that data, meaning that you know that the data that you have retrieved has not changed since it was added to the storage that you selected back in the day. So that is complete, that has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies, blockchain. You have a company, you have a large database, and every minute new data is entering the system. Okay. It's impossible for you to verify, how should I put it, to manually make sure that you keep, to provide something that in 2 years' time can be used by someone else to say, okay, this is still the same data. You can add it, or you can use the PoSign service, and automatically for each data part that is being added to your database, you will also be provided a PoSign component that will allow you to verify that the data that you added so many years ago hasn't changed since you added it.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's quite interesting that you could more or less run a parallel data storage system that has some similarities with the characteristics of blockchain, and so not the blockchain.
Yes, that will allow you to keep your data private. Yeah. Because lots of companies use data that they don't want to have on a public ledger because they don't want other people to see the data. Exactly. And this will allow them to have the security of a blockchain for data that is stored somewhere else.
Exactly. All right. I mean, that's quite interesting, and that should be one exciting enterprise use case for your platform. Dave, I mean, it's been quite a long process, and I think we're coming to the ends of it. Would you like to give us a projected view of where you see XTRABYTES in, say, the next 10 years? What would it look like?
Well, you know, Golden has talked a lot about the network and the potential and the technology, what we have coming together. And there's a lot of visions that we have for the long term of the technology. And a lot of the people who have been close to the project have heard us talk about being competing with Google in the future. And a lot of people look at that and they just don't see how that's possible. So let's look at let's take this from a standpoint of XTRABYTES achieves all of its goals, and we grow. And this network, which is a very special network, something that's it's going to be a revolutionary system once we are able to show that and people can understand what Zoltan is actually developing. So if we have this network and the network is faster and more secure than traditional networking setups, and we have a static network around the world of unlimited amounts of storage space, unlimited computer capacity, this kind of thing, that sets us up in a situation where we can start adding various applications, programs, competition for, let's say, some of the biggest sites out there on a decentralized network. And so this is the long term of what we believe can happen with our technology. It's completely rewiring the internet is essentially what's happening. And so, you know, if you talk about the next 10 years, we've got a lot of work to do over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years to really take this to the point where it's the robust monster that we know it will be. And at that point, and even before along the way, we're going to start hopefully seeing a lot of programmers who are seeing the vision and seeing what we're capable of, and then, you know, coming along and saying, hey, we want to be part of this, and we're going to build this. And so once that starts to happen, then really the sky is the limit. And so, you know, by all means, we have some big goals ahead of us, some big visions, and we do believe that the technology that we have coming together is going to allow us to go places that people just don't believe is possible. So it's very exciting for us.
I sort of agree with you, because I'm also of the view that, I mean, as a blockchain person, that surely the internet would have to eventually get decentralized, and big tech would have to give way and create a level playing field for everybody. And we sure know that blockchain has to lead the way in decentralizing the internet and creating a playing field for everybody. And it will be quite interesting to see how XTRABYTES plugs into that momentum that is irreversible anyway. In the next 10 years, that will be cumulatively almost 20 years for the entire industry in itself. And it will be great to see where XTRABYTES goes alongside other exciting blockchain projects in this space. It was great having you, Dave and Golden, and hopefully we'll touch base in a couple of moments or in a couple of months' time and see how far you've gone with your project and how exciting it's been and how much more people, how larger the community has grown, and where next you'll be going. I'm glad to have you on my show today, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, and all the best to you as well with your new project and podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Same here. Enjoy your day.
You too.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.